And I saw your offer.
Oh, for
Um,
Jones. I
yes.
forgot about that one. I realized how poorly constructed my roster was in Fresh Duds. I had three RBs on my roster, and two of them were on bye weeks this week.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was
That's
like, oh shit.
I took a lease out on your heart. I took a lease out on your heart. Can I at least have fun? Can I at least have fun? Can I at least have fun?
Welcome back, everybody. We are Rough Draft Research. You are the audience, and together we are on a quest for Dynasty Domination. How's it going over there, Daniel?
so good. I mean, really, I'm having a great time. I got so many 7-3 fantasy squads that I'm starting to worry I'm gonna need multiple belt mounts at the end of
Oh
this one.
shit. Oh
So
goodness.
if you're looking out for a champion and you see me coming, you know what's up. So Survivor Pool showdown, me and Davey this week.
Hmm.
Feel like I
I
know
hope
how
you
this is
take
going
it.
to end, and congratulations. But we'll see how it goes. How are you doing, Christian? What's
I'm
up?
I'm doing all right, man. Not as good as that.
Yeah.
I have a few dynasty leagues where I'm still doing pretty well. For the belt. I got a little teased into thinking I was gonna get CMC going in next last week. Had a trade all talked out, and then that fell through.
Dodged a bullet.
And then yeah, so now I'm kind of resigning to the fact that I'm probably gonna miss the playoffs and for the belt. Anything can happen. But I even had like another trade for Hunter Henry, and I ended up declining that because I was just like, I feel like that worked if I was pushing, but now I'm kind of like, if I have a top 5 or 6 pick, it's like whatever. I'll just take that one more year in the rebuild. I hope I still win a few more games because
Of
losing
course.
sucks. But
Yes.
if I still, I don't know, feel like I can keep building. It was still a rebuilding year, and we'll go from there. My roster has been good, but I think there's some pieces I still need. But and then the D League, I have a great team, I have a shit record. So we'll see how
Yeah.
that goes. See if I can push into the back. If I get into the playoffs in that league, I feel like I can be a berserker and kind of
Hell
fuck some
yeah.
shit up.
It's a
But
small world.
I'm like 3-7 with the second most points for. Um, and so I'm if I can push though, if I can make it, then we'll be all right. But anyway, you're not here to hear me ramble about my leagues.
Kind of.
I guess kind of. But we're gonna get into some stuff today. It's a little bit of a different episode for you. But as always, we're gonna start with the rookie roundup. But it is different this week because we are over halfway through the season. And instead of just recapping what these guys did last week, I'm going to break these rookies into tiers. And this is going to be kind of how I feel about them going forward in their careers, as well as maybe some guys that have the potential to move around. Obviously, any of these guys have the potential to move around. You never know what's going to happen in the NFL. But this is at this moment through their rookie season how I feel about them and their fantasy viability going forward. And it's going to be tiered, the classic tier list structure, the S, A, B, C, D, F. So we're gonna get into it, but for you, what do you want to do? Do you want to start at the top and work our way down, or do you want to start at the bottom and work our way up? What do you think's more
Oh,
interesting?
schnitzel. Well, now typically I would say start at the bottom and work your way up, but I think that the old format usually had the crescendo.
Okay.
So let's start at the top
Let's start
and
at the
go
top and
backward.
go down. I kind of like
Yeah.
that for this. I think honestly, the guys in the middle tiers are a little more interesting to talk about and why.
Yeah.
Um, so we're gonna start off in the S tier. This is gonna be S for superstars here. And there's only three guys in this. The only three that I felt like really truly deserve to be considered superstars at this point. Obviously, there are some names in the A tier that might ascend here, but we're gonna start off with Mr. Jaden Daniels. Been absolutely electric this year, with only 9 passing touchdowns as well. He's still been really, really good. He's the QB6 on the year with 19 points per game, 464 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns on the ground. And I mean, we're just getting started with this kid, and he has completely changed the Washington Commanders as a whole. And having a guy like this to just slide into your fantasy roster all of a sudden, especially in say like a super flex league, just absolutely everything that you could have wanted him to be. And that's kind of why I think it'd be more interesting going down. This is just pretty obvious that I feel like he should be a superstar in terms of quarterbacks.
Yeah, no, I love him, man. I mean, obviously, we've been pumped about him. We were worried about him being a
Hmm.
little too slim, but he's making things happen and he's unlocking, the potential in others, which is,
Hmm.
that's what we're here for. But it does feel like this team, Washington, has more that it can do to help Daniels out as far as the support cast. So I think that, obviously there's even more that can be done here. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Looking forward to it, but he's a badass.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to the only wide receiver in this group, and there were some names that we're
Tough.
struggling in this S tier, but Malik Neighbors, I think, has earned that spot. And maybe last few weeks he hasn't been as electric as he was at the beginning of the year, but he's still sixth in wide receiver points per game at 17.4. He leads all rookies in targets by 34 targets. So no one's even close to him, and he's tied for second in the league in targets, and that's on a really bad Giants offense. So if the Giants get a legit quarterback in there, I think this guy just goes nuclear. And that's why I have him in the S tier. Like he's doing this on a bad roster with a bad quarterback. Just imagine how he's going to be when it's somebody competent.
Yeah, and it's good to see it work out. I mean, we talked in the off season and I was scared about the landing spot.
Hmm.
I had feelings about other players in this draft class that we'll get to later, but You, were right. I mean, 94 targets at this point in the year. That's incredible. That's gonna keep you up on things as far as being a fantasy asset. When only Garrett Wilson and CeeDee Lamb are in that conversation with you, it means
Hmm.
you're a superstar, man. So
Yeah, absolutely. And
there
I
it is.
can't wait to watch him going forward. And then we've got a tight end here, Brock Bowers, 73 targets, which is pretty insane. 580 yards, only 2 touchdowns, but he's fifth in fantasy points among all rookies. And
Yeah.
he's the tight end two on the season, second highest targeted tight end in the league right now. And this is a position that famously usually has a slow start, but not if your name's Brock Bowers.
No, there was no slow start for him, He's I don't know. He wears a John Mackey jersey underneath his pro jersey because he's been winning awards since he got on the field, and it's crazy. An abysmal team like this can make something exciting happen. That's kind of the story of the superstar squads,
Mhm. Yeah, so far, I mean, all three of these teams were not great coming into the year. Two of them still not great now, but one of them has been turned around. But their offenses at least have been changed by the arrival of these three players. So it's hard to not put them in the superstar club. So going to the A tier, this is your solid starters tier, which maybe sounds a little unexciting, but I think solid starters are really important, obviously, for fantasy, guys that you can just plug and play every single week. And as much as this to the chagrin of me and all of my negativity and shit talking, we're gonna start with Bo Nix here, starting off the A tier guys. It's hard to argue. I mean, his rushing ability keeps him in games. He's the QB9 on the season with 17 points per game, so just two less than Jaden Daniels. 290 yards on the ground, 4 touchdowns, and 10 through the air. He's just been really solid on a team with not really a lot in terms of weapons. I know they have the super genius Sean Payton or
Oh
whatever,
yeah.
but not really much of a running game to speak of. Not really much at receiver outside of Cortland Sutton, and even him as your wide receiver one, I don't think is like groundbreaking. So to see him doing this and just consistently getting better each week, as much as I don't like it. Um, I don't saying I don't like it seems weird, but uh
You didn't expect it
didn't
and you don't
expect it,
enjoy it.
and I don't enjoy it because of just the experience of who all they are. But well, I mean, Bo Nix is probably fine, but I hate Sean Payton. He sucks. Anyway, Bo Nix, solid starter, probably going forward. I mean, I don't know that he's gonna ever have the ceiling as some of these other guys, and then maybe his rushing ability starts to taper off as he gets a little older. But I mean, he's already shown that he can kind of advance the ball downfield and do his thing.
Yeah, and the rushing ability kind of really came out of nowhere. Just kind of a
Mm-hmm.
leadership type mentality, the poise.
Mm-hmm.
Watching him that, that was crazy. Chiefs game,
Mm-hmm.
blocked field goal, whatever. Um,
I
but
mean,
he was not, he didn't seem overwhelmed at all to be going against the
mm-mm.
back-to-back Super Bowl champions. He was just doing his job, and that's what you want to see out of a guy, especially with, such low expectations and such a kind of a bummer landing spot, just for him to
Mm-hmm.
go in there and just grind and
Yeah.
like, just keep at it and let the good come to him. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He really has earned his spot. Moving on, this one might be a little controversial, but I feel like I've seen enough out of Drake May to put him in the solid starters tier. I mean, he's only been the starter from weeks 6 to 10, but he's the QB 10 through those 4 weeks, 16.9 points per game, so just slightly under Bo Nix. He has 233 rushing yards already on 25 attempts. Just for reference, Bo Nix on 61 attempts had 290 yards. So we're seeing
Wow.
Drake May's actual rushing ability that we knew he had coming into play, and he's only got one touchdown. So if he starts adding those touchdowns on, and just his ability to kind of scramble around and make plays. And again, the reason I put him here instead of somebody we'll get into later on in the B tier, he's doing this with nothing. He's doing this with
Right.
Kayshawn Booty and
Yes, sir.
Jalen Polk and Hunter Henry and Ramondre, which I mean Ramondre is good, but like he's not that good.
No.
So that's why like, oh my goodness, if this team starts to get better and they're kind of in the perfect position with the projected sixth overall pick right now to kind of add to this team and make them actually viable. And for him to already be kind of willing this team, maybe not to win so far, but to like at least fantasy viability and like a more exciting offense. I mean, he's already got 7 passing touchdowns, which I mean, you look at Jaden Daniels been starting since the beginning of the year, only has 9. Caleb Williams only has 9. Bo Nix only has 10, and Drake May already has 7. So I mean, he's doing it. He's producing. So I feel pretty good about putting him here.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of the perfect situation, where you can have a player um go out there, be successful, look good, but your team still not get the win, so you can
Hmm.
still build around him. Hey, you don't see that too often, but
Hmm.
whatever, New England. Let's see what you got. It's
Yeah,
freaking me out.
let's see what they can do. Moving on to our first running back here, Tyrone Tracy, New York Giants. He's just been really solid, man, and I think the reason I have him here is he has the clearest path to like starting work. I think the Giants have so many needs that they need to address that I don't see them kind of throwing away a little diamond in the rough they found in Tyrone Tracy, and he's already kind of taken the job from Devin Singletary. So 545 yards this year, 5 touchdowns, and he hasn't even scored a passing touchdown or a receiving touchdown, which is, part of his transition from wide receiver. You think that game could get unlocked. So I feel pretty good about putting him here in the solid starters as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I was watching that, got some beautiful early morning Sunday football from London last week, and man, he was just grinding. Like there were spots in that game where Singletary was picking up steam, and I was like, "Uh-oh, is this like, this isn't for sure yet." And Tracy ended up taking that second half and just like getting after it, just letting everybody know, like this is
Yeah.
my team, and yeah, it is what it is with the Giants, but yeah, I'm happy to see that Tracy's picking it up.
Yeah, me too. It's pretty fun. Probably a guy we should have been. I remember talking about him going into our tournament, and
Yeah.
maybe I should have stayed on him a little longer. I just kind of fell off, but that was a mistake. Not a mistake by you. Because next we're talking about Brian Thomas Jr. And now this was a guy who honestly I had in the S tier for quite a
So
while. And I moved him down for a couple of
broke my
reasons.
heart.
But I think he's been great. 607 yards, 5 touchdowns on 37 receptions. He's the wide receiver 12 on the year, which is pretty impressive. But the reason I moved him down is because he's 27th in points per game. It's just a little more inconsistent. And then ever since Christian Kirk went down, he hasn't been as effective. I know T-Law also went down, so it's kind of hard to really put that on the blame. But it just seems like now that people can focus in on him a little more, he's not breaking out as much. And also it's the target share. I mean, Malik Neighbors having 94 targets compared to Brian Thomas's 56. I just think that puts him in more of a solid starter. Now, he could be a guy that absolutely moves up into that S tier very soon. And then I just have my own personal doubts about Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars experience. So,
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for saying Trevor Lawrence the second time instead of T Law. But I don't know. Brian Thomas has shades of Chris Olave to me. Like
mm,
he does need to be kind of a streaker type
mm,
downfield target where, like you're saying, without Kirk around, it's been a little rough for him. I
mm.
think that he definitely benefits from being, another dimension of the offense instead of being, the front page. So we'll see how it shakes out. But yeah, he's awesome. We all
Yeah,
know that. We already all know that,
definitely.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely A tier. And then Marvin Harrison Jr. is our next guy here. Um, very briefly flirted with him for the S tier, but I don't think so. Just the inconsistency from him so far has been a little frustrating. I mean, he's got 499 yards, 6 touchdowns, but that's 100 less yards than both Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors. He's got a high touchdown rate, 6 touchdowns. That's pretty good. But he's 37th in points per game for wide receivers, which is just not what you want to see. That just speaks to the inconsistency, and so does this. He has 4 games below 6 points and only two above 20. So that's just not superstar material to me yet. Maybe he does kind of figure it out with Kyler Murray down there. He has been an important piece in that offense. But just as far as fantasy goes, I just think he's more of a solid starter at this moment.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, but he didn't have to try in college, you know what I
Mm,
mean? He just kind
yeah.
of went out there and was automatic and he had, like you're saying, great touchdown rates and his contested catch rate was way more impressive when you only get 1 foot in and can do whatever you want. But
Hmm.
there's I think a learning curve and this offense is running differently than I think most people expected, differently than I expected, with the resurgence of James Conner, the big JC. So I think his time will come, but it's a little slow start for sure.
Yeah. And I do think it'll heat up for him. He's definitely somebody I could see being an S tier guy, but just not quite there for me yet. Next up, Lad McConkey. I think he's been really solid, man. And if we start to increase the workload for him, I think he'll be really good. I mean, speaking on Harrison's inconsistency, he was 37th in points per game. Lad McConkey's 32nd. So it's not like like he's in front of Marvin Harrison Jr. right now. 492 yards and 4 touchdowns on 27 catches. He's really had like with that one crazy boom game, and I do think Jim Harbaugh might limit his upside just in terms of how they play that offense. But I do think he's a guy, man.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Like the Chargers are becoming the new San Francisco for me, where it's just like I see what's happening, but I don't think it's trustworthy
Mm,
at all. I
that's
don't
fair.
understand it, but no, he's definitely a leader on this team. But until we figure out how it's all going to shake out, I'm still a little hesitant. I do think he belongs in the A grade, and he's going to have a great future, but I feel like the team is too incomplete for us to know what his future really looks like.
That's fair. I can see that. And that was why I think he's at the bottom of these A tier receivers right now.
Gotcha.
But we never know. All right, gonna pick up the pace just a little bit because I feel like I'm dragging a little. But we're moving into the B tier, and this tier could also be known as promising, but I have some questions. So starting off this tier, I've got Caleb Williams, which seems shocking given that he had all the hype in the world coming out. But he's just not really done it yet. I mean, he's the QB1 on the year, 14 points per game, which is not what you really want out of your quarterback, who you presumably took first overall in a super flex. He's been sacked 38 times, so it's not all his fault. There's just some bad Bearsness going on. But his completion rate of 60%, which isn't terrible, but really it's the deep throws. He's 8 for 38 on throws of 20 or more yards, which is 21%, which is just not going to do it. And the reason I move him down here and have Drake May and Bo Nix up there, he's got all the talent in the world around him outside of the offensive line. He's the one with Keenan Allen and DJ Moore and Romo Dunze and all these guys. And Drake May and Bo Nix are doing it with lesser. So I just think I do still believe that Caleb Williams has the talent to be great, but I just question if this is all going to work right now.
Yeah, it feels like there's something wrong in Chicago, and it's definitely too early to say it's Caleb and the offensive line pretty stanky, but they're still 10th on the pass blocking PFF grade, so
Hmm.
they've got some redeemable qualities. I just don't think it's clicking if, as far as the play calling and the decision making. So definitely questionable.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, next running back here, we got Bucky Irving, another one of your guys, and honestly, the only reason he's not in the A tier is just less of a clear path to the starter, or at least he's going to be splitting times. I mean, Rashad White's still there. Who knows for how long, I guess. But and then we've got Sean Tucker that comes in a little bit. So I just feel like he splits a little more time than Tyrone Tracy might potentially. And I mean, you look at it, Tyrone Tracy started later than Bucky Irving, but has more attempts, more yards, and just one less touchdown. So it kind of speaks to what I'm talking about here, but Bucky Irving's been great so far.
Yeah, absolutely. There is kind of a feeling that anyone can be successful in this offense at times when the wide receiver group was healthy. But,
Hmm.
comparing him to Tracy is pretty bold because Tracy, I feel like, is the number one there.
Hmm.
Whereas I feel like Bucky's got a ways to go before he gets there. But I mean, in my heart, he's always been number one. So call it
That's
good on that.
That's fair. Another guy you liked coming out, Keon Coleman, also in the B tier. Just pretty up and down. And I kind of thought he would start to gain traction when they added Amari Cooper, which he did, but then he got hurt. So we're just kind of still feeling that out. And I just think the Bills want to spread the ball around a lot. I don't know that Coleman is like a true number one guy, and that those are kind of the questions I have for him. But he's had a good year.
Yeah, he's doing healthy, doing well. I guess he's missed 2 games, so not healthy, but I do feel like the Bills are like they're not looking to make any superstars. They're just like less is more.
Hmm.
Success is our goal. No one cares about the stats, and he's kind of been the victim of that. I feel like they could lean on him harder, but they don't really see the need to do so.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like their vibe right now. Rome Odunze next up. Kind of throw him in with Caleb Williams. I know the Bears fired their offensive coordinator Shane Waldron, so maybe we'll see something different. And to be
So
fair, 15 yards basically per reception for Odunze on a bad offense is pretty good. 28 catches, 414 yards. But I really just think we got to wait till next year to really see what Odunze can do. See if Keenan Allen's still there next year, and just see what the Bears become.
yeah, total mystery.
Hmm. Absolutely. Next up, this one might be early, only played 2 games, but Ricky Parasol, I also think has looked really good. I feel like I obviously have faith in the Kyle Shanahan offense, and Parasol feels like a San Francisco wide receiver to me, a guy who can just run and get open and do exactly what he's meant to do. But in terms of the questions I have and why he's in the B tier, it's volume questions. You got Ayuk, Debo, Jawan Jennings, George Kittle, CMC, all those guys have to eat. And so just how like Parasol might end up being really important to what San Fran does, but in terms of how consistently he's going to help you fantasy wise, I question that at this moment.
Yeah, like you're saying, he's another element to this team that is pretty much a total package. So getting a foot in the door as far as relevance, not really promising.
Yeah. Moving on, Jatavion Sanders. We're gonna get into a pair of tight ends here, starting with Sanders. He's been pretty productive, especially with Bryce Young the last couple weeks, which is fun to see. But it's the Panthers, and I just don't really know where they're headed or what they're doing, or even if Bryce Young is gonna be the guy there. And so I mean, those are the questions. But in terms of like, can he play in the NFL? Yeah, I think he can. I think he's proven that like he can be a viable piece.
Yeah, and especially with two wideouts being shipped out, he's got massive opportunity. And I mean, he's doing well. 26 on 32. That's solid, man. That's a reliable option there, especially for a rookie tight end.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, Theo Johnson, just slightly under him, 238 yards. Kind of similar questions as the Panthers, like how good are they going to be? Who's their quarterback going to be? But Theo Johnson has like showed out and showed a little bit, so I kind of put him here instead of in the next tier.
Yeah, I like Theo. He's definitely heating up. So we'll just see how it ends up.
Gotcha. All right, so now we're moving on to the C tier here. And this is unsure but intrigued. These are guys that like maybe have a little more questions than the guy above them, but there's at least something that you can grab onto and kind of like about them. Starting with Michael Penix, I think that's just perfect to put him here because it's Kirk Cousins. When is he going to be gone? Came in and completed his first pass this past week, one for 14 yards. So 100% completion percentage. Go Penix.
That's kind of a stretch of the praise there. I love it. It's like, yeah, you do one thing perfectly. So it's just stop while you're ahead.
Just
If you quit
quit. Just
now,
retire.
yep, that's the way to do it.
Uh,
Yeah, Penix.
Not a
Yeah,
lot to say here. I just
no.
felt like C felt right. Moving on to Ray Davis. Unsure here just because like James Cook is going to be around and Ray Davis seems to disappear as soon as James Cook shows up. But as soon as James Cook's not around, it feels like you can start Ray Davis.
Yeah, and that's what it is. I mean, I don't think he's ever going to be a lead back.
Hmm.
I think he could heat up to be, I don't know. I don't know want to say anything weird, but like a Tyler Algier-esque
Hmm.
guy that becomes a thorn in the side of the James Cook managers and whatnot because he's capable. And I think they know that. I think they're just, like I said, man, the Bills are acting weird right now. They're not
Yeah.
doing anything experimental. So I
Hmm.
could see why not incorporating additional workload. Rookie running backs are known for, um, high profile fumbles and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah,
So
that's
let's
fair.
just keep it cool.
That's fair. Moving on to another guy who's going to be behind a running back for a while, and that's Braylon Allen, sitting behind Brees Hall, but he's looked good in the little bit of effort he's got, or the little bit of work that he's got. But I don't know. I don't really know how to feel about how often he's going to get the ball.
Oh, I feel like you pushed this to the B, dude.
Yeah.
He's great. I've got questions, but um no, I think he's wonderful as far as Jets running backs go. Like
Hmm.
they've just been kind of blowing us away with their consistency in drafting guys
Hmm.
and kind of underutilizing slash just dropping, wasting them. It's nice to see a guy that's being successful in a way that they can appreciate and utilize. So I'm excited to see if he can get closer to like a 35-40% snap share, keep Brees on ice, because I think he's got a lot more potential if they can, kind of utilize him in a potent way instead of a every down kind of back.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Quickly on Trey Benson, he's looked decent, and James Conner's getting old, but just haven't really seen enough of him, basically.
I'm sorry, did you say James Conner is getting old? No, no, nothing to say about Benson. He's getting some touches and it's pretty cool. It's that whole backfield's kind of like fun, the DeMarcado
Hmm.
stuff. It's just kind of frisky.
Yeah, for sure. Audric Estimé gets into the C tier here just because it looks like he's going to be kind of taking over. He got the most work this past week against the Chiefs. Maybe that was a scheme thing, but I didn't want to put him in the maybe next year tab just quite yet because he might have a big second half of the year.
Yeah, I love Estime and I think he's got a ton of potential. Javante's been iffy as hell, and I think Estime can easily become a 1B
Hmm.
and push for work across the entire field.
I'm with you. Xavier Worthy might be the most high profile name in the C tier. He's just been maddeningly inconsistent. We've seen the explosive playability, the long touchdowns, but he kind of vanished rather than got opened up by DeAndre Hopkins so far, which is intriguing to me and not really what you want to see. And he's the wide receiver 62 in points per game. So I just the flash of talent is there, but I'm just unsure about how this is going to go.
This morning, I dropped Xavier Worthy in a redraft to pick up Will Disley. I
Mm,
think that says it all.
that does say it all. All right, two Panthers receivers coming up because they basically have the same talking points. Um, as Ja'Tavion Sanders. The Panthers are bad. Is Bryce Young going to take a step up? Is he even going to be the guy? But Xavier Legette and Jalen Coker have both shown some stuff, especially Legette in the red zone, having 4 touchdowns on a team that's not scoring a lot of touchdowns. And then yeah, I want to see what both these guys do going forward, but I'm unsure about the Panthers as a concept.
Yeah, no one's sure about them. I mean, even like if they perform poorly, which I don't know what this back-to-back win stuff is. I mean, that's not what we know you guys for, but yeah, I don't know. Does Young get replaced going into year three? Feels like I wouldn't mind doing that if I was running the show here.
Mm.
So it's hard to really take any of this success or failure and project it in the future. But these two seem like they're going to be solid wideouts and they're going to be on the field, especially the rest of this year. So let
Yeah,
it
for
roll.
sure. Moving on, Jalen Polk. The emergence of Jake May makes him interesting, but we just have. I mean, he only has 80 yards on the year, so I don't know. He maybe could have been in the maybe next year. I think just the Drake May of it all makes me put him here.
Well, a lot of people are saying Jalen McMillan was better than him in college, but
That's true.
I guess Jalen McMillan probably doesn't even have 80 yards yet. So
He does actually. So.
well, there you go.
Two tight ends to talk about very, very quickly. AJ Barner had 7 targets last week with Noah Fant injured, could see an increased workload going forward. And Eric All has been pretty productive when he's on the field. He is hurt right now, and there's a lot of mouths to feed in Cincy, but I'm intrigued to see both these guys going forward.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. And since especially there's some kind of weird tight end roller coaster going
Hmm.
on.
For
A
sure.
dude named Hudson is in there, and
Yeah.
I don't, I
And
didn't, I
Gesicki.
can't,
Yeah.
I can't even.
It's wild. All right, moving on to the D tier. This is not where you want to be, but this
Oof,
is my maybe next year tier.
this
So
looks like your draft results here.
yeah, it kind of does. A bunch of running backs to get off started off. I'm just gonna go real quick and then stop once I go through the running backs, and you can comment on who you like. Marshawn Lloyd been hurt basically all year. Seems like he's gonna get activated off IR soon, so maybe we'll see him going forward, and maybe he will be the backup to Josh Jacobs. But Josh Jacobs has been awesome, so I don't see him going anywhere. Jalen Wright, kind of similar. Devon A. Chain's been awesome. It's Jalen Wright has been pretty good when he's been on the field, but only has 1 target, 211 yards. Not really worth writing home about yet. Kiami Vidal had a crazy reception, which was fun, but other than that, hasn't done much. Blake Corum got completely eaten alive by uh,
Hiring.
Kyron Williams, so nothing to talk about there. And then Isaac Guerendo has been good, but I mean CMC's back and Jordan Mason was the starter, so like it just seems like it's gonna be hard for him to get on the field if everyone's healthy.
Never trust a 49er. period. You got to keep these guys on ice, man. We've seen it time and time again, and nothing
Mhm.
rookie year doesn't really mean anything. Lloyd, for sure, right, 100%. Vidal, I don't know, probably okay. Not holding that at the back end of your
Yeah.
roster. But yeah, name value alone on Quorum, and then Grindo. I mean, who knows? Honestly, never trust a 49er, but it's a nice little pack. I don't know. Early indications on next year's running back class. Some of these guys might get more opportunity than we think, as
Yeah,
far as replacement value, not really headed down. So
that's fair. All right, gonna go into some wide receivers here. Adonai Mitchell hasn't seen the field a lot, and now that Richardson's the quarterback again, I don't see him getting a ton of targets. Jordan Whittington disappeared as soon as Cup and Puka came back, but he was pretty productive when he was alone, so worth trailing maybe into next year. Jalen McMillan, I think the only reason I didn't have him in the C tier is because I would have loved to see him step up when Godwin and Evans went down, and he just didn't. Obviously, he did get hurt himself, so that hurts where he came in. But he had a game or two where he was there and just didn't really do anything. Followed by Bud Means and Mason Tipton. I'm not really in on either of these guys, but the Saints have a massive rebuild incoming and no money to really move around, so they could still be starters next year. Because I don't know that the Saints are going to be able to bring in anybody other than get Olave healthy and Rashid Shaheed, so maybe they won't be starters, but they could see the field at least. And then Jermaine Burton, obvious talent, but off the field issues keep coming up. And then who knows if T. Higgins will be back in Cincy. And Malik Washington, he's on a team that rarely uses three wide receivers, and Odell kept him off the field. He's got 3 catches for 17 yards, not what you want to see. And Luke McCaffrey, the coach said more touches are incoming, but I don't know how valuable Jaden Daniels' second or third wide receiver is anyway.
yeah, LMC is what we're calling him.
LMC.
But yeah, he's yeah, I don't know. I did like the little Malik Washington little pop right there, but yeah, Burton definitely getting Yoshi Vost pretty hard right now.
hmm
New Orleans, like it's all well and good, but I think they should find a way to bring in a wideout next year, in the draft at least. You're right on McMillan. That was a bummer. Definitely could have stepped up. Definitely had some good looks that just didn't go his way. And then, yeah, Whittington, what are you going to do when Demarcus Robinson is in your house, man? Like you have no choice but to surrender.
That's fair. Last guy in the D tier, maybe next year on Ben Sinnott. 3 targets, 3 catches for 18 yards. Zach Ertz is there, so I imagine he may not be next year.
Hope not. I mean, it's getting weird.
All right, so this is definitely not a place you want to be. The F tier coming up. Just a few guys here. This is no faith in a productive career from myself. Hopefully, these guys can prove me wrong. But we're starting with Spencer Rattler. I think we all saw while he was on the field, he just looked frantic, didn't really look like he was comfortable. Got a 55 passing grade from PFF.
Yeah, not the kind of thing that's going to give you an opportunity to crawl out of that draft capital and be somebody.
hmm Uh, this is unfortunate because we both kind of like this player coming out, but Will Shipley, he has no targets. He has 19 attempts on the year. 9 of them came in the last game when they were trouncing the Cowboys. And even so, he's got a 2.4 yards per carry. And Saquon Barkley, that experiment is working. So I don't see when Shipley's going to get on the field really.
Yeah, and the limited breathing that Saquon has to do between miracles has been taken up pretty well by Gainwell
Yeah.
still. So
So it just doesn't seem like a place, but hopefully he proves us wrong. Carson Steele also here. He had 1 game as a starter and then lost all the reps to Kareem Hunt at 29 years old. So that to me just tells me all I need to know.
hey, dude, the Chiefs own the offseason storylines. They just own him.
That meme was great though, or that AI image or whatever it
Oh
was
my
of
God.
Carson
I
Steele.
hope I never see it again.
All right, now I've got a pair of Broncos receivers. Had to shit on the Broncos somewhere, but Devon Villay, I'm sorry, he's a 26-year-old seventh round rookie. I'm gonna take the field. I'm
For
that.
sure.
That's just it.
Yeah. No, it's a flash in the pan. It's over.
Yeah. And then worse off to me
Oh
is Troy
no.
Franklin because
Oh
he
no.
can't even beat a
No,
26-year-old
no.
rookie seventh round
You
pick
got it all wrong.
or little Jordan Humphrey for
It's
work. And this team needs weapons
yep.
badly. Bad more maybe worse than any team. They need guys to catch the ball for Bo Nix, and he's Troy Franklin's still being largely ignored as a concept, which just does not speak to him having an awesome career.
No. 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 I remember how much you loved him in the college film, the Oregon days, but uh he had so much volume in college. It just hasn't got there yet. I think he's got potential. I wouldn't I, I wouldn't I wouldn't yet. I wouldn't put him at the bottom of the entire list of rookies like you have, but we'll see. I've been wrong, but I'm not giving up on him yet.
Fair
He's
enough.
no what is that? Tez Walker. He's no Tez
Tez
Walker. So
Walker. Yeah, that's fair. Oh man, he wasn't
no,
a rookie
dude.
this year.
He
Was he?
was.
Oh
Yeah,
God. Yeah,
man.
he didn't even make the
Straight up.
list. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Tez
Yeah.
Walker definitely F tier. Sorry, guy. All
Yeah.
right. Well, there you have it. That is your rookie roundup tier list. I'm gonna check back in on this at the end of the year, see if anybody moved around at all. But as of now, that is how I feel about these guys going forward.
I like it. I don't have too much to argue with you about, but um, I do want to talk about rookies and just like the success they have versus the success of the team that they're joining, because we're at that stage in the season where people are starting to trade their valuable assets for future picks
Hmm.
and vice versa. And so we're gonna start ramping up. I'm gonna start ramping up the conversation of like what does the off season look like? What can we expect to change next year? Because I like to try and stay ahead of that stuff. I'm not as ahead as some of those sharks in the water, but we spend a lot of time thinking and dreaming about it. So um tonight, I was gonna kind of take a look at the bottom 10 offenses currently, and then how the bottom 10 offenses of the past few years have drafted with some of their higher draft picks, and seeing how it pans out for the fantasy world. Um, so just to start the conversation, we'll just establish who we've got at the bottom of the scoring offenses this year. Some surprising names on this list is Miami.
Mm.
They're number one, the worst. I think we can attribute that to some injuries and whatnot. But this is their first time on the list in the past 4 years, counting this year as a year. So I'm not too concerned about them. The Browns are kind of in the same situation, first time on this list, but they're number two, and that's a little different. They're kind of we should all be scared, and they could use help in pretty much all the ways possible. The Giants here are third worst, third appearance on this list in the last 4 years. That's pretty self-explanatory. Danny Dimes probably a little scared for his job. Shouldn't have got that extension. No big deal. Titans at four. We all know the story there. Then you've got New England. You touch on that pretty heavily in the rookie roundup. Panthers, kind of the same story. Seventh worst is the Raiders. Kind of feel like we all saw them get robbed when Penix went before anyone expected.
Yeah.
And then you've got Chicago, which like that's an all-time disappointment, and their third time in the last 4 years to be on this list. Ninth is a little bit of a shocker. You've got Dallas.
Hmm.
I mean, they weren't winning any point totals even when Dak was healthy. So it's a little too soon to give that excuse out there. But it is their first time on this bottom 10 over the past 4 years. I can't say that for the Jets. There's been some
Goodness.
dynamic plays by Garrett Wilson, and then obviously Brees Hall's in the house. But as far as scoring goes, they have been bottom 10 the past 4 years running. I don't think they're going to end the season in that position, but so far it's undeniable. That's where they're at. So I wanted to kind of quickly go through the past 3 years and look at
Mhm.
teams that have been bottom 10 and seen what they've done in the first 3 rounds of the draft as far as the skill positions go. Um, so last year, the worst team was the Panthers, and in the first 3 rounds, they just picked up Leggett, and we've touched on that pretty good here. He's got some potential, but the team is still treading through the mud. You've got the Patriots at number 2. They picked up Polk and May. You've touched on them. Both have some potential to do well, but not superstar status any at not at this point. Next up with the Giants were third. They got Neighbors, and he's got a lot of potential. He's obviously kicking ass, but it's volume dependent because there's nothing else going on, and he's
Mhm.
supremely talented. So he's not really getting a bump from the situation. But the Jets were fourth last year. They've got Malachi Corley, nothing to say there. Um, Roman Wilson went to the Steelers, who were fifth lowest last year. Yeah, he hasn't played yet.
Yeah.
Titans didn't take anyone in the top three. Then the Falcons were seventh lowest. They took Penix. Nothing to say on that. And then you've got the Commanders, right? They were eighth worst as far as scoring goes, and they went all in. They got LMC, Luke McCaffrey. They got Ben Sinnott, and then they've got Jaden Daniels.
Playmakers.
Yeah, man. So that's the kind of like I want to see this kind of focus concentration
Yeah.
because they got the hit on the quarterback and that's what counts. But rounding out, the Cardinals didn't do anything in the top 3 rounds, and then
Well, they
Raiders.
took Marvin Harrison.
Oh yeah, of course. What am I doing? Something happened. Yes, Marvin Harrison. So yeah, they were the ninth worst, and they took Marvin Harrison, obviously. And then the 10th worst scoring team was the Raiders, and they took Brock Bowers. So,
Which
um,
seemed weird at the time, but has really paid off.
yeah, it's like he's the only name in town right now.
Mhm.
Feels like, but it's just kind of strange. So of all the skill position guys to go in the first 3 rounds, there were 26 players, and 12 of them were taken by these bottom 10 teams.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, that's a pretty good, almost half. So
Hmm.
these guys were definitely going for playmakers to try to help them out. But yeah, aside from Daniels, Neighbors, and Bowers, it's kind of like wait and see. No one's getting hooked up. No one's changing the fate of the team very quickly. Most of these teams are back on this bottom of the list, except for obviously Washington and Atlanta, which Atlanta doesn't really count. So
Hmm.
anyway, kind of pick it up a little bit, just getting into the 2022 draft. So 33 skill position guys were taken in the top 3 rounds, and it wasn't really heavily pursued by the lowest scoring teams. Broncos were worst off, and they took Marvin Mims. Colts were second worst. They took Downs and Anthony Richardson, which didn't really
Downs has been
bounce
great.
back.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
Downs has been
felt
great,
good.
and Richardson has still potential to improve on where he was at. But I mean, Downs is a slam dunk.
Hmm. Yeah, what they were trying to do is what Houston did with the Stroud and Dell, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Like that's the success right there. But then you've got like Tennessee, they took Levis and Tajay Spears.
My
Uh,
poor Tajay.
yeah,
Fucking Tony
yeah.
Pollard.
And then you've got Darnell Washington going to the Steelers, largely underutilized as far as fantasy goes. But those were the only, yeah, it was kind of a slim year for the desperation teams to be taking big swings. The kind of same story in 2021, where the second worst team was the Giants and they took Wandell. The fifth worst team was the Jets, and they got pretty crazy with it, taking Garrett Wilson and Brees Hall and Jeremy Ruckett. I mean,
Hey.
old Ruckett. We don't talk about him very much anymore. But other than that, it's kind of slim pickings. The Bears took Velus Jones. That was cool. Falcons tried really
I
hard
forgot
by
about
taking.
fucking Velus Jones.
Oh yeah,
He
dude.
was a top three pick.
He was the third rounder. Yeah,
My goodness.
yeah.
No wonder the
From
Bears suck.
USC straight to Tennessee, man. Volunteered to kick ass. But the Falcons, they were getting nasty with Ritter and Drake London.
Mm.
Obviously, 1 out of 2 ain't bad. The Lions got in there, taking Jameson Williams, and then the Commanders. We were all pretty pumped about Jahan Dotson,
Yeah.
and then Brian Robinson Jr. is
He's
kind of
been pretty
working
good.
out a little
Yeah.
bit. I think it's replaceable. We'll see. I could be wrong. And then obviously the Broncos got to be on this list. They took that Greg Dolchik guy, and it's not really
Mm.
working out. So
Sean Payton hates him for some reason.
yeah, that's fine. You would probably get along well with Greg. You guys
Yeah,
talk
me
shit
and
on
him would be
Sean all
boys.
day. Yeah, exactly. So I kind of do all this to look at like the teams that are doing poorly and just get a general vibe on if I trust them to be able to right the ship. Just kind of orientating my mind for
Hmm.
what's going to come through when I see these draft picks come my way, and I'm like, damn, of course, I'm going to love these players coming out of college. So I look at something like this and I'm like, it's pretty slim chances of some of these players going to a shitty situation and coming out smelling like roses. It, Looking at this list, it's much more likely um, that you take a chance on a third round player and he Velus Joneses your ass. You know what I mean? So um, I'm
That's
kind of
fair.
I'm kind of like hesitating at this point. I like to see a little more, but I love the trading. I love the excitement. And I think that there's another half of this conversation that deals with like genuine team needs
Hmm.
as far as skill positions go. And I think there's a potential for us to have that conversation right here next week.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So next week, all this information we just unloaded on you about how these teams have drafted, we are going to look at the bottom 10 offenses that we spoke on at the top of this segment and kind of project going forward using our box score boomers that we
Yes.
usually bring you to. And we're going to kind of see like where these fits might be, kind of like a mock draft situation, not really more of just a conversation. It's way too early for all that. But
Mhm.
seeing kind of how this can all work out, and seeing what we think these teams should do and what kind of needs they should address in the offseason. So that's what we're going to be hitting you with next week. But until then, we've been Rough Draft Research. You've been the audience, and we'll see you next time.
Take care, y'all.
I took a leap